Right. Reef Builders TV, episode 1, take 1.
Cheers.
Cheers. Welcome everybody. It's Jake Adams from Reef Builders, and we have Mark Vanderwall, contributor here. And what are we doing? What are we doing here?
We're hanging out in a reef keeping mecca, surrounded by corals, surrounded by fish, just being hobbyists, just talking about things that we're passionate about, not...
Hanging out in Golden, Colorado. Oh man, so much has happened this year. So much is happening next year. It's kind of mind-boggling, I think, everything that's going down.
Where all have you been this year before it ends in, what, 4 days?
Oh boy. Well, internationally, I went to Singapore, Bali, South Africa, and Mauritius. And then inside the country, I can't even keep count, but Denver airport is like a room of my house. That's what it feels like. It feels like a second room of my house. Like it's a Denver airport. Like I know what's going on.
It's a conduit to all these cool places.
Yeah.
And here we are sitting with a Mauritius fish swimming around. There he is.
The zebra tang will pop in and out of frame. But you know, Reef Builders, we've written so many stories and done so much writing. And I feel like there's only so much we can get across through writing. I think the videos will be a good step to kind of put a human element into the content that we bring.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, it's, you know, everybody wants to create a YouTube video of like, this is how you set up a fish tank, and this is the best way to do this. And it's like, you know, for me, what I always loved about Reef Builders is it's just hobbyists. It's just everybody's got a different thing that they're excited about or a different way they do things, but we're all just hobbyists and we love to get together and we just like to get excited about the same things.
That's a great point. We are hobbyists first and reefers first, not videographers. So if this video comes out a little janky, excuse us. We'd rather be that good at taking care of reef tanks than at knowing how to make videos. So we just threw it up on the tripod and figured to shot some stuff up.
That's the truth of it, man. It's just, it's funny because, you know, people read Reef Builders, but when you and I get together or anybody, we're just hobbyists drinking beers, getting excited about corals
non-stop
in a tank. Like, wow, what the hell are you lighting that with? And you know, that's
so we're at Reef Builders headquarters now. How many tanks can you see without moving?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, wait. I lost count. That's 6, 7, 8. And then I know what's in your basement.
there's more corals in the basement. But you know, it's just important to be a practicing reefer and keep your hands wet. And yeah, just staying excited about all the corals and the equipment and the fish and the news. And people are always looking for like revolutionary changes. Things don't really come about that way. They come about slowly. So.
Well, we've known each other since, you know,
1999.
Yeah, and when we get together, it's just two people getting excited about just hobbyist level stuff. I mean, about just, you know, finding a coral at some store that, you know, was hiding in the back corner.
I like the part where one of the first frags I sold was one of the first frags you bought.
Yeah.
It was Australogyra zelli. It's like a coral that most anyone doesn't know about. I'm still looking for it. So I'm looking for that perfect piece.
Solomon Islands frag. You sent me home with a stick of super glue and that coral.
Yeah, we didn't have super glue gel back then.
No,
it was just super glue.
Home Depot, yeah. And I was living up in Boulder. It was
Colorado
Boulder,
the beer's
right? Oh yeah. And he sends me home with Australogyra and super glue, and I hacked that coral up to bits. I glued it, growing it. And that's how I got into SPS in the 90s. Really. And that wasn't even really a true
SPS.
Not even
SPS. Yeah.
But it was a great coral to start off with, nevertheless.
Cool, so let's see. It's the day after Christmas today. I'm guessing we probably should be able to get this out early January, which we'll be talking about the new year. But right now, we're really in the middle of a lot of recap posts.
Yes.
New fish, new corals, new coral species, and products. And Lemon's on fire. Like, he can't even make up his mind. He wants to rewrite about every fish again that's already happened. But there was so much this year.
He's a fish expert on steroids. I mean, what he puts out is just mind-boggling. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff came out this year. You know, stuff that I was excited about. Mackinac was fantastic this year, you know, down in Florida, Fort Lauderdale. It was just a really good year to be a hobbyist. I think a lot of great products came out. You really saw the direction that the hobby was going with products and new innovations. And I don't know. I think it has a very bright future. I'm very optimistic about it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to think that our entire hobby and what's become my industry is all built of expendable income, right? Right.
Yeah.
If we hit dire straits, people wouldn't keep aquariums at all. I mean,
Yeah.
some people would need to be entertained, but reef tanks, you know, that's all expendable income, and so I feel like it's a metric of our economy as well. Because if the reef aquarium hobby is doing well, then the overall economy should be doing well too.
Well, you think about all the LED innovation that happened in the dot-com bust and the housing bubble burst. You know, I mean, the last few years the economy has been kind of down, and yet LED technology has been evolving. A lot of things have been happening, and now that the economy is recovering, all signs point to, you know, go. What's going to happen? You know, what's going to happen?
Like
People start keeping aquariums. And
I wasn't thinking about, we talk about the economy in this video, but it's really cool how there's actually an interesting snowball effect where if in hard times people still have money to spend, but they're just a lot more critical with their ad dollars and with the stuff they buy. And so now instead of replacing a metal halide lamp every year or a bunch of T5s, they're like, okay, I'm going to get this LED light and it should last me several years. So that hardship brings about the changes. It's kind of neat like that.
necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Right.
And innovation happens in those lean times. Yeah. No, I mean, I look around and I don't see a single tank not illuminated by LED in your house.
Even the house, like I keep a few novelty bulbs. There's actually a novelty T5 fixture downstairs just for fun. So where are we? Yeah, no, I feel like is it this year? No, this year I didn't go to Reefpalooza, but previous years I went to Reefpalooza. Last year I gave a talk for the first time called The Golden Age of Reef Keeping, just because we have access to more fish, more coral, more information, more everything. It's just kind of crazy. God, you know, you remember in late 90s or 2000s, like you went to a coral shop and you found certain things. You know, you saw Dracophylias and Scalenias and Lobos and lots of leather corals and a bunch of nasty zoanthids and some mushrooms, right? And so many corals that we have now would have never ever been seen.
Yeah, but I'll take a step on that and say that I do miss those days, because I miss the fact that back then, you know, LPS, softies, you know, the SBS craze had already happened, but
yeah, but we
you
didn't
could
have
get
that
some
flows.
very
We didn't have deep
true,
waters.
True. Yeah, I mean, no, there was definitely room to grow, but I feel like a lot of the LPS and a lot of softy corals, like that craze, you know, that let's assign some crazy name to it and put a steep price tag to it. That started to proliferate into other corals, and you know, I won't lie, I miss the days you could go in and get a beautiful Dracophylia that was just gorgeous for like less than $100, and now, you know, you see those things coming in for $300 because people are recognized for what they're worth, you know, and
It's very much a double-edged sword.
it is.
Very much. But that's cool. And for me, I don't know, this was a great year because of one bookfish. I call a bookfish a fish that I've looked at in a book and pictures for a long time. Refer to the species that you never see. But this year I got one. The zebra tang right there. And he just swims in and out of view. Looks like a convict tang with more stripes and some spots on his belly. The stripes are actually a little bit different shape than a regular convict. But, you know, I begged and pleaded and demanded, well, I didn't demand, but I asked for this fish for a long time, and finally the Garobi clan, the Garobi family in Mauritius, you know, found a location for them, and now they're a thing. And this guy was the first one out, and now there's people around the world who get to play with zebra tangs. So, you know, so just for me, it's such an exciting time, and you know, all the recap posts that we're doing, it's like, there's new species described, there's new species that hit the trade of corals and of fish, and man, if 2014 looks anything like 2013, we're gonna get some crazy fish next year.
Yeah, and then the technology too. I mean, the lighting, the filtration, everything. What does it bring? You know, I'm excited to go to Interzoo with you. You know, to see what's there. Just yeah, I mean, LED is growing so fast and diversifying, and just the whole technology spectrum of that lighting, it's just growing at such a rapid rate that you really have to wonder where next year, Christmas time, when we're sitting around having a beer, where are we going to be at? You know, what are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, I don't know what the eventuality is, but it will be plenty bright lights for cheap that do everything.
Yeah.
It's funny, when the LEDs first came out, I always meant to write a post saying, hey, you know, it's inevitable that we're going to get colors, right? The same way it was inevitable that people who had black and white TVs eventually got color TVs.
Yeah.
And people weren't thinking about this. They were thinking about blue and white, what ratio of blue and white. It was like, okay, well, we need a couple shades of blue. And it was inevitable that we got the greens and the reds and the yellows and everything. And so I think we'll see more of that. We'll see more of that in future fixtures, just because it's available, and those LEDs are getting better too.
I think so, yeah, you're right. Oh, you know better than anybody.
Yeah, I definitely need some LEDs. So, what do you want to see next year?
You know, I love this, I can't even call it a trend anymore, the all-in-one tanks, the AIOs, you know? I mean, everybody's making them, they're coming in every different form.
They're getting bigger?
They're getting bigger, yeah.
Red
I
Sea?
love what, yeah.
Red Sea is revisiting their mid-size Maxes.
Innovative Marine, making these big all-in-ones.
With the shallow reef, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and I definitely think there's a future in that. And I don't know, you know, I think that those back compartments, I think that, you know, we're still figuring that out, how to make the perfect little skimmer and make the perfect little, you know, turf scrubber or, you know, macroalgae scrubber in there. You know, I think there's a lot of growth in that department. I mean, I love sumps, don't get me wrong, but I think eventually, just like lights are getting more efficient, we'll make filtration more efficient, and eventually you don't need a sump, you know?
That's the one thing I think people are going to learn from the Nuvos, from the Nuvo SR particularly. It's just a chamber back there with a pump, and you can manage the flow that's going on back there, and you just don't need this power plant filtration center.
Down in the stand, where you're PVC glue, you know, sniffing that crap at 12 o'clock in the morning trying to get the thing plumbed up. Like, let's just build it in the back.
The more things you have, the more failure points you have. Now, this is not on video, but here you can see my sump. I just have a filter sock and a protein skimmer. Not even any bio balls, just breaking all the rules. The lace rock in the tank, and the flow, this is my biological inside the tank. And that actually worked out really well this summer. Summer was on a South Africa trip, and this tank didn't get topped off, but the water pump for the flow still running. This wasn't pumping water up because it wasn't topped off. And these fish were fine because all the biological was inside the tank.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Bacteria doesn't care, right? Bacteria grows on everything. It grows on the freaking glass. So for a good biological filter, if you have a great aquascape, you kind of cover that base. The real question is, can we build skimmers that are small, that are efficient, that can fit in the back of something? And I think we can these days. I don't know. I think. You know,
I think
2014.
2014. I think we're going to see a revisit to some air-driven skimmers.
That would be great.
I've seen a few designs, a few prototypes. One is an all-in-one sump, not an all-in-one tank. So there's one company that's working on an all-in-one sump that you just put under your tank and it has everything you need, and it's their protein skimmer is driven by air. So that's really cool. I think we'll see more of that. I would love to see more air-driven skimmers for tanks 50 gallons or less, because that's what I use on my tanks that are 50 gallons or less.
Yeah, it's something that I think was forgotten.
Tell me again about your protein skimming strategy, because I thought that was really novel.
Well, it's, you know, back in the day, everybody tried to go skimmerless and stuff, and I don't know, you know, I have a decent bio load. I have a lot of large angels and a mixed reef, and I really was trying to go to something that I could carefully neglect, and I started to really embrace the macroalgae scrubber. You know, don't skimp on the lighting or the flow. Like, treat it like you're growing coral. Like, illuminate the crap out of that algae. And on this flip side, I started to cut back on the skimming, and just to see what would happen. And it's really hard because I'm not a scientific.
Tell them how you cut back on the skimming, because that's the cool part.
I basically run my skimmer 1 week.
What kind of skimmer is it?
Per month. It's an ATV medium, I believe. It's got a Ascol.
So you've got a real skimmer. Good skimmer.
It's a rock star skimmer. It's awesome. I only run it 1 week out of each month on a timer. Yeah.
How did you come up with a week a month?
I just came up with it arbitrarily where I see the benefits that when it runs, that cup filleth, right, with some really nasty gunk. And I'm like, anecdotally, that's got to be doing something good. But I also can't deny the fact that when it's not running, my corals do better.
Well, you know, it's definitely competing for trace elements and additives and different things. So
I'm getting better polyp extension, I'm getting better coloration, I'm getting better growth. So I thought, I can't deny that it's removing something, you know? So I thought, well...
So to me, using a really, really good protein skimmer for 1 week a month is kind of the same as having a mediocre skimmer running all the time.
Right.
Because it's taking about the same amount of stuff over that long period of time. Like this tank right here with the air-driven glass skimmer. It's not stripping stuff out of the water the way like a real hardcore protein skimmer would.
Well, yeah, you brought up the lowest hanging fruit analogy.
So I talk about low-hanging fruit proteins, the proteins that are heavy, that can contribute to the most waste, or also it'll be some of the easiest to remove out. You know, and that's one thing people forgot. It's like, it's kind of like Moore's Law, right? Moore's Law, the chips double in speed roughly every 18 months. Instead of making a ton of cheap stuff that runs really slow because the stuff got really cheap, they just decided to make things faster and faster and faster. Same things with the protein skimmers. People just like, all right, let's just make it bigger and badder. And so we're still spending the same money on our protein skimmers, right? What was a Berlin skimmer with a mag drive pump?
Back in the day.
Like late 90s is probably about the same as your medium-sized ATB elegance is today. You know, so there's definitely room to like back off some of the protein skimmers. So I was actually delightfully surprised when you said that you were running your skimmer 1 week a month. I think it was cool.
Well, I mean, like I said, that analogy of the lowest hanging fruit, like some of the proteins, some of the things, you know, can be reutilized, right, within the system, by corals, by whatever, bacteria. But it's that stuff that builds up over time that, you know, nobody has a use for it, like skim it out, you know. And I still believe in water changes from time to time, and it has worked for me.
You still believe in water changes. I love water changes are key.
I am.
Come on, man. Don't be opening up another can of worms.
I am. I live a very busy life, and I believe in careful neglect. Is what I call it. Where, you know, you put all the right pieces in place that your livestock can live a good, healthy life, and you can enjoy your reef tank, but you can also kind of neglect it every once in a while when you need to. And for me, like I do water changes maybe 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it works okay for me, and I would never write a book about it and call it a method and tell everybody to buy my book and say do it. I
use observation. I use observation on my tank. So this fish tank probably gets 4 or 5 water changes a year, but they're also pretty big. Right. I watch the fish. You know, I'm like, it looks fine. Same thing with the reef tanks. I can kind of tell when they're getting a little scuzzy when they're ready for a water change. But the reef tanks, coral tanks, really, they're more like on a 6 to 8 week schedule. But this is my job. Taking care of the tanks is my job.
But it goes back to people subscribing to an ideology versus just getting to know your corals, getting to know your system, and just work with that knowledge, work with that feeling. You know, it's hard to put it into words. I mean, a product I would love to talk to you about is AcroPower. Like, I cannot give you a scientific, you know, material number, hey, this is what works for me, but that's an element or an additive that really works for me. And it's the same with my methodology. Like, I get to know my corals and I kind of vibe it out, you know, and no methodology is perfect, but some work for this guy and some work for that guy. Oh man, this
is going to be a hot potato right here, but I really feel like there's kind of a man-dominated aquarium culture, reef aquarium culture, of gadgets and power and numbers and watts and liters per hour and all this stuff. Whereas I've seen the way ladies take care of their reef tanks and use observation. Just look at the tank.
Get to know your corals.
Get to know your corals. You know what that coral, that fish is supposed to be doing at that time of day on a given day. And that's the same thing with AcroPower. You know, we need to incorporate more observational skills. Like, observation should be in the reef books, but they're not. The #1 test kit is look at your tank. Like, we set up tanks to look at them, right? So I have an intern, and her job when she gets here is to spend 10 minutes looking at the tanks every day. Every time she comes here, it's like that's the first thing. You go around, look at the tanks. I want you to be familiar with the tanks. I want you to be familiar with what a coral supposed to be doing at this time of day, or where it's supposed to be. I want you to tell me if I move a coral from one tank to another. Like observation is key. That's one of the things we should write in the reef books. And coming back to AquaPower, man, that's the first product we've ever reviewed that was good enough to say, hey, this is the product of the year. This is the best stuff. Without exaggeration, I know there's some skeptical reefers out there, Rich Ross, who want to hate, they want some data and some analysis. But if you wrap that stuff, you just see the effects. You really, really see the effects.
Well, I think it's a delicate line, right? Because you want to be scientific about conclusions and results. You don't want some preacher hobbyist come out with something and not have any actual evidence that what he's advising is actually good or bad. But on the flip side, I mean, the scientific community, you know, like I got a degree in biology. We did the whole research thing. I've been through the loops and stuff, and there's definite validity in that. But it's also nice to just be a hobbyist and also be able to say, well, anecdotally, from my own personal experience, I know my own corals, this really seems to have a positive impact. And we discount it heavily sometimes. Too heavily.
We were talking about this earlier, though, but if we relied only on scientific data to do this, we would be stuck at underground filters, right? We're one long anecdotal train. That's what the
That's
reef
what we are,
right?
yeah. It's
one
the
long
train
anecdotal
keeps
train.
moving. We don't get interrupted by those things where we can just keep chugging and be like, hey, this works.
Yeah, you know, some things work great, some things don't.
We don't have the answers yet, but I'm going to have 30 other hobbyists try that, and they all have good results. And we don't all know why yet, but let's figure that out. You know?
That's the fun. It's
fun of it.
pseudoscience, but at the end of the day, or at the end of 2 decades, we have amazing, beautiful coral tanks to look at.
It's okay to attack the pseudo, but it's also, you know, accept that the pseudoscience has a place.
I wouldn't say attack, right? But just recognize it for what it is.
Right. Yeah, don't let somebody become a celebrity out of it.
Observation, anecdotal evidence. You build up a bunch of observations and a bunch of anecdotal evidence, and they're all pointing in the same direction, you can start feeling more confident. You know, but my evidence for AquaPower is I add it to all my tanks.
That, right.
Every day, and that coral right there. You know, add it to the tanks every day. It's some good stuff. And it's not inherently new, it's just a better formula of amino acids that some of us have really, really good luck with.
Well, I felt the same way about saline for amino acids. They were fantastic.
That was my first one.
Yeah.
You know, so the backstory is, when I started using Salifert coralline amino acids, I love that stuff. I love the way it smells. I resisted ever taking a swig because it has that weird smell, but I always wanted to taste it. But I put it in Julian's ear, I think like 8 years ago. It's 2013. I guess I started using it 10 years ago. So anyway, and Julian was just like, I don't know about no additives. I don't know about no amino acids. So then a couple years ago in Secret, he started working on it himself and refined the formula. Like you will never tell me or anyone what's really in it. But I can tell you can add a bunch of it, won't grow any algae, won't cause any problems, doesn't have to be refrigerated. I don't know that there's a lethal dose because I add a lot. My good running maximum dose of AquaPower is about, 1 ml per 10 gallon per day. 1 ml per 10 per day.
Well, I mean, people argue that dosing amino acids is like dosing nitrates or blah, 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 you know, like what is an amino acid is a very generic term, and I get that, but I can't quiet that argument, you know, I mean, it's something happens when I dose it and I
so
have
you're
a great
using
result.
AquaPower?
Yeah. The other one I use is Fuel by Seachem, but Seachem, I get a good coat of algae on the glass. Like I'm definitely dosing some nutrients.
Yeah. So saying something has amino acids is like saying it has elements. It's like saying it has stuff inside. But
it's a very generic term.
Yeah. So, but there's a class of amino acids that needs to be refrigerated that will clearly lead to some, fueling some nutrients. I know it'll fuel coral growth too, but then this other stuff, there's AquaPower, and the coralline amino acids doesn't need to be refrigerated, doesn't affect anything else. But all right.
Well, I've dosed what is it? Was it ammonium nitrate? Something like that.
You dosed nitrate to your tank?
Yeah, I have.
Ammonia and nitrate on purpose?
Well, yeah, because you start getting into bacteria dosing like vodka or what are the biopellets. eventually you get that, you know, where your phosphates are here, your nitrates are down here. You start to get the cyano.
Oh, right.
You get the cyano. Hey, we can affixate, you know, atmospheric nitrogen, whatever. And so, you know, some of the solutions from some of the European reef keepers were dose nitrate. And I've tried it, but you know, whatever. It had its own pluses and minuses, but amino acids was like a different realm. It wasn't like I was dosing nitrates. It was like there was something there that really helped these corals grow.
Yeah, besides chemistry, you know, like I dosed plenty of additives that affect chemistry: calcium alkalinity, magnesium, potassium, iodine. Really worry about calcium and alkalinity the most. But then when it comes to ancillary additives, I dose almost nothing.
No, yeah, I don't. No, I don't even. Not even iodine in a softy tank, which sometimes I wonder. You know.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We should.
No,
Take